Reading.
And I've read thousands and thousands of pages aloud.
I love reading because of the things it has done for my life.
Make you more imaginative, make your memory better, probably improve your personal relationship.
Never otherwise know, to experience a world of imagination, adventure, and discovery.
However, not reading can even result in making your brain less active or engaged.
Hi. So we all know reading is a positive and constructive habit. Especially the older generation always preached to us. When you don't read, your knowledge gets lost, your ability to communicate clearly gets lost, and in general the culture gets lost. But why exactly is it so good to you or for you? Today I want to focus on exactly that. I want to shine light on how reading changes your brain and why it's so good to actually read from a scientific perspective. Let's jump right in. To better understand this, we have to regard to our brain as a city interlinked. Different buildings, different standpoints, all communicating with each other through streets, through information, through signals, but those points of the city aren't buildings. No, those points are the different areas of your brain. What I want to focus on now is a timeline of what actually happens when you first lay your eye on a word in a book to your different areas of the brain. The first 50 milliseconds of the computation that's going on in your mind when you first lay your eyes on a word on a page is the visual raw data that is actually complied. So just like a camera, the camera's pixels see the contrast, your eye actually differentiates black and white. The black color of the letter and the white background of a page. Responsible for this raw data is the occipital lobe, or the primary visual cortex, V1. It can't really identify each and every letter, but it can see the contrast on the page between the black letter and the white background. Nothing really happening there, just the raw visual data. From the 50th millisecond to the 120th millisecond, your brain actually recognizes the word that you're reading as something familiar. Responsible for this is the visual word shape area, also scientifically known as the gyrus fusiformis. What actually happens here is the word is just recognized as a word. So your brain actually just says, is the word a word or is it no word? The visual word shape area is actually something that's highly specialized in your brain. It's on the left hemisphere and only exists in people who actually try to read or train reading. From the 120th millisecond to the 200th millisecond, the loud structure as well as the syntax of the word is actually recognized. Responsible for that is the Wernicke area as well as the temporal lobe. So your brain actually recognizes a word as something meaningful and already connects it with how you would talk it out loud. So the loud structure is actually recognized. The best way to compare this step to is just your brain taking a peek into the lexicon or into a grammar book, thinking, okay, is this grammar that I recognize? Is this a word that I recognize? Is it something that I've saved up here? Yes? Then let's continue. From the 200th millisecond to the 350th milliseconds, those words are actually given meaning as well as context. Responsible for this is your mid-temporal lobe and your hippocampus. So your brain asks itself, do I already know this? So it generates a connection between previously saved info and connections to actually meaning. So what does hello mean? Your brain does it in exactly this step. Also, it generates a connection in form of context across over multiple sentences. From the 350th up until the 500th millisecond, your brain actually judges, deducts, and reasons rather what it's just complied or computed actually makes sense. It generates something like mental maps, sort of comparing the information that you've given it to what you've already known and connects real meaning to it. It generates pictures almost already. These logical connections also allow it to deduct what will happen in the future. Responsible for this logical process is the prefrontal cortex. While all this is happening, the limbic system is doing something quite significant in the background. It's asking itself, okay, does this what's actually happening right now, what I'm complying right now, have any meaning to me or is it obsolete to me? Because in order to form memories, you have to have some sort of emotional connection. Your empathic center, so your limbic system, is responsible for that. And when you're reading about some person suffering a car accident, you're also feeling the sense of empathy. So, in order for you to actually memorize, you have to have emotions that are supported by it. CEO of this whole process is actually the thalamus and the cingulate cortex. Those are stabilizing the reading, cutting out distractions, and actually securing a clear neural structure that enables the constant timeline that we've just established to run smoothly. So basically, they generate focus, what enables you to read. Now we've established what the different areas of your brain actually do during this active process of reading. But it's actually way deeper than that, because reading also does have physiological effects, manifesting itself in the central nervous system. Our central nervous system, responsible for our bodily functions like heart rate, lung function, or basically muscles, can be divided into two categories, two prime actors: the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. Those two regulate themselves and co-regulate themselves in order for you to maintain focus while reading. The sympathetic nervous system originates in the spinal cord, more specifically between the vertebrae of T1 and L2. It's controlled top to bottom by the thalamus and your brainstem. What actually happens when you start to read is another cascade inside of the sympathetic nervous system that we will talk about now. First, the sympathetic nervous system, more specifically the thalamus, gives your body the command to initiate a sequence we can imagine as a goal-directed task. When it does that, it basically says to your body, cut out all the unnecessary background information, cut out all the noise in order for us to focus. Same thing actually happens when your body is full of adrenaline. You're standing face to face to a tiger, and all of your bodily muscles and all of your skeletal muscles are provided with enough energy through the bloodstream to actually function well, to either run or fight. And your brain is turned off in this scenario completely because you really don't need your brain in order to fight a tiger. As soon as the goal-directed task is initiated, your pupils actually dilate slightly in order for you to have a better visual input. Another thing that happens is that the noise to signal ratio is actually increased. So you have more signals that actually have a purpose than noise in the background. When the goal-directed task is actually initiated, those background noises are completely cut out because you have to focus. You have to fight against the tiger. And also, of course, your heart rate increases slightly, mildly, because your sympathetic nervous system is actually responsible for putting more blood into those muscles, And when your heart doesn't pump faster, no, that doesn't work. So what your sympathetic nervous system actually does, it sharpens your focus. It enables error detection, so when your mind wanders, and when you do a reading mistake, for example, because you're super alert, and what I just said actually, it prevents your mind from wandering. So when no threats are detected and meaning turns predictable, as well as the sentence structure stabilizes, your parasympathetic nervous system activates. Your sympathetic nervous system would be metabolically too expensive for your body to provide this extra sharp focus, this extra sharp alertness. So your parasympathetic nervous system downregulates the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system originates in the cranial nerve or vagus nerve. It also has some specific functions that we can use in order to better our focus while reading. One of those tasks is the predictive processing of information. When we have a book in front of us, we have a reoccurring sentence structure, a reoccurring task to process words. We can compare this similarly to us just walking down the street without a care in mind, without being scared of the tiger. Because we don't have to be alert and our brain knows what it has to do, the parasympathetic nervous system regulates us to just do the same process over and over again without this high alertness. When you want to say it like this, it regulates low entropy information. While the rhythmic eye movements are actually recognized by the PNS, just like the casual walk down the street is recognized, our stress signaling to the amygdala is also downregulated. So we don't have a cortisol spike, but our cortisol levels shrink, as well as our heart rate lowers itself again. While this happens, at the same time, the hippocampus tries to connect with your prefrontal cortex, telling the prefrontal cortex, hey man, there's meaning emerging there. So the parasympathetic nervous system actually allows meaning to form. It focuses our mind, but it doesn't focus it too much like the sympathetic nervous system would do. Those two systems, the SNS and the PNS, regulate each other, co-regulate for us in order to focus and generate meaning. What would happen if one of the systems would be too dominant? When the sympathetic nervous system would dominate, we would simply be impatient. We would just scan the lines without actually recognizing them, and we would have shallow thought, not deep thought, because no meaning really would emerge. When the parasympathetic nervous system would dominate, we would zone out, reread things, and generally lose our sense of structure. So to sum up why reading is actually so good, I'm going to give you all the facts right here. That's the moment you've all been waiting for, right? Hopefully you pick up a book after. Reading is good because it reduces cortisol levels, which help with lengthening the lifespan, as for those of you who review Brian Johnson might know. The vascular usage of different brain regions is facilitated. As you might know, a form of Alzheimer's or dementia is facilitated by the clogging up and calcifying of those arteries going through your brain. When you have enough blood flow through all of those regions that I have mentioned here, your chance of becoming dement or getting Alzheimer's disease actually shrinken. Another positive aspect of reading is the building of myelin sheets along each and every axon. Myelin is a substance that actually facilitates a faster processing of information in the brain, and those myelin sheets are primarily fastened in the prefrontal cortex when you read enough. Also emotional regulation through the limbic system, so you can better emotionally regulate yourself when you find yourself stuck or stressed in a specific situation. Your empathy is also strengthened, because when you read about somebody dying in a car crash or somebody, or seeing somebody in a social scenario where you have been, you can much better appreciate where they are at right now. Also your ability to think instead of act, so your ability to think before reacting actually increases or becomes better. That is a prefrontal cortex function. Also your patience becomes better, you become a more patient individual because of the delayed reward. It's a limbic function. Also the stress regulation, as we know, because of the cortisol levels that go down. Obviously your attention span gets better and the ability to focus through the hypothalamus that's trained. And last but not least, you're learning something. Your knowledge grows. My name is Ben. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give a thumbs up if you want more like this. I'm not a scientist, but I think I communicated the science quite well. Follow for more.